Tudo bom?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, all of you that is watching us from your homes. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very much for all of you that are here today with us. Morning. Can anyone please close the door for me?
Yep.
It's just too noisy. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Just before we start, I'd like to just give some notice here about our FSS general meeting that is going to happen on April 3rd. 13, sorry. Yeah. I said 23.
I heard third.
Now 30. 30. 30. It's good that it's written here. So we'll be in April 13, which is Sunday, after our public meeting, as usual. So we invite everyone to join us. It's a very important meeting that we need to do by law, but also because it's important for you guys to participate in our FSS institution. You can apply for the positions that we are offering. Please let us know if you didn't receive an email. We sent an email earlier to your email addresses, so you can understand what is the positions that we are going to have available, that we need to vote for those that are interested in joining us. So we are going to have lunch, and donations are always accepted. So please put in your calendars and help us to build a better FSS to 2025. Thank you very much. So let's start with our harmonization text that we are going to read from Living Spring, this book from Francisco Cândido Xavier. And this text is based on one of Jesus' teachings when he said, "Feed my sheep." We can find this teaching on John chapter 21, verse 60. The divine shepherd's request of Simon Peter's loving heart is highly significant for the continuance of his ministry. Seeing humankind as his immense flock, Jesus does not tell Peter to use drastic measures to impose discipline. No yelling or scolding, no prisons or gallows, no whips or rods, no punishment or imposition, no abandonment of unfortunates or flagellation of the wayward. No lamentation or despair. Peter, feed my sheep. That is to say, brother, support those who are needier than you. Do not let rebelliousness discourage you, nor condemn people's errors, from which a beneficial teaching will arise later on. Help your neighbors instead of chastising them. Teach always. Be a faithful worker. Be demanding of yourself and support the infirm and fragile hearts that follow in your footsteps. If you sow the good, time will take care of the germination, growth, blossoming, and fructification at the right moment. Do not criticize, thus destroying. A novitiate today may be a mentor tomorrow. Support your neighbor's good side and go forward. Life will transform all evil into rubbish, and the Lord will do the rest. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we beg you to be with us today. We beg you to spread your light over all of us, helping us to reflect upon your teachings, to understand your words of eternal teachings. Help us to take heart and to make efforts to follow you towards God. We appreciate your help, your light, your presence in our hearts, among us today. We are grateful also for all spiritual friends that are with us today. May they help us to have a better understanding of your teachings so we can act upon our hearts by seeing our limitations and transform ourselves in a better person, a better people. The world needs so much love and compassion. Thank you so much for this opportunity, my Lord. Be with us now and ever. So be it. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Sorry. More? The AGM? Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. I was planning to do this again at the end of the meeting. But anyways, let's do now and then we can do it. So for those that were not here before, we have our AGM happening on April 13 at 12:30 after our public meeting. So this is a very important meeting. So we are deciding FSS next president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. So the positions are available for any of our members. There are some criteria to be matching. All the information is in the email that we sent to you all. If you didn't receive the email, please let us know so we can send to you, okay?
Look at the event process now.
Yes, and check your junk folders, please. That's it? You need more? Okay. So John is providing for anyone that you want to have to follow our meetings today. We are talking about just do one thing at each time here. Okay. We're going to talk about this text about Peter's denial from the Good News, but we have the text that you can follow the information. Let me just find here, just one second. How many copies? Do you think?
Five? Yeah.
5? Okay. Okay. Oops.
Jackie, just a moment.
Oh, actually, can you stop that? I guess I sent the wrong one. Sorry. Can you stop?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Can I send the other one?
Yeah.
So, I believe that most of you already know this text that we have been, this chapter of the Good News. This is the book. So we are studying some of the chapters that it brings. The book describes some meetings that Jesus had, some conversations that Jesus had with his disciples. It's a very interesting book, and actually the book was received reward. Is the second best book for spirituality in the world. So highly recommend for anyone that is interested in reading. We have it in English and in Portuguese. Boa Nova. So if you guys are interested to learn how Jesus used to talk to his disciples in private meetings, like the disciples were ordinary people as all of us. And they had questions, they were not sure about the gospel. They were having some doubts about their own capacity. And they had some meetings with Jesus in person to to ask questions, and Jesus were very kind and loving, and he was giving them some advice that is very important for all of us to learn as well. So if you are interested in learning more, this is the book. Today we are talking about Peter's denial. We have been talking about this chapter 26 since August last year. So we are on the part 4 today, and we are aiming to finish, but as we keep saying, it's not a concern. To finish this talk is not a concern. As long as we reflect upon it, we had some good information for our lives. That's the most important part. So everyone might be receiving a summary of what we have learned so far. We are not going to go through again to what we have been talking since August last year. We are going to move from the last part of the chapter, and we're going to go from there. So the main point today that we will be talking about is the learning mindset that we all should have, as Peter had in that very challenge moment that he had lived as Peter. Peter is immortal spirit as all of us, and in that moment he learned so much from this moment, from this time when he denied Christ 3 times. And we are here to learn from him, learn from his mistakes, and ask ourselves what we have been doing, how we have been treating ourselves when we commit mistakes, how we see ourselves, how we treat ourselves. We're going to be talking about guilty feeling, the learning mindset that we are all invited to have about the law of compassion. How can the law of compassion, how can we comply with the law of compassion, and how we can practice the compassion virtue with ourselves and everyone that we live with. So that's the main point that we're going to be talking about today. Of course, we are going to review how Peter lived that moment, how he understood what he was going through, and we are going to learn from him. Because after this point, Peter became a very true leader of the Christianity. But until that point, he was not ready yet to learn. So let's see how we are learning from our mistakes, as an example of Peter. Okay, so first of all, let's remember Jesus' invitation to learn from him. So, he said in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." So here it's clear that Jesus is inviting us to learn from him. Which main virtues that Jesus is asking us to learn from him? Humility. And another one?
Gentleness.
Gentleness. Or meekness. Yeah. Right? So he says that I am gentle and I am humble. Learn from me. We are still not, we cannot say yet I am, that we are gentle or we are humble, but we are learning. And what is the best moment that we can learn to be gentle and humble?
In our trying situation, people we are with, we live with, we interact with.
Perfect. Yes. And also
With ourselves.
with ourselves. Because we cannot give to others,
If we don't have it.
we don't have it. That's right. So first we train with ourselves. We practice with ourselves. Every time that we commit a mistake, how do we treat ourselves?
How can I do it? How could I do it? How could I do it?
How could I do it?
How?
I should not have
What a
done that.
stupid person you are.
Usually hard on ourselves, right?
Very,
We think very hard.
very hard to ourselves.
Very. Yeah.
And when we have a friend that comes to us, very dear friend that comes to us, say, I commit this mistake, I did this and that. What do
You
do?
are allowed to make that mistake. You
Yeah.
are a human being. I am
It
not.
wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Don't worry that much.
And why we don't say that to ourselves also?
Because we're our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sabotage our own happiness. I've seen that. Our own peace of mind. I've seen that. Like, we are our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
But we are invited to be our
Best friend.
Best friend.
best friends.
Yes.
Best friends. And that's the invitation that Peter received from Jesus. He is inviting all of us. And when he says, who are weary and burdened, this is what means. Sometimes we have that moral pain. We are very upset. We are in a very challenging moment with all the problems that we have in our daily days. And sometimes we don't stop and think, okay, how can I support myself to face all these challenges in a better way, in a peaceful way. So we are invited to learn from him how he would do it. What we could, if we were able to meet Jesus, what we were going to ask him and what he could answer to us. Because sometimes we imagine that Jesus is so far from us, in heaven, somewhere very far. But we are invited to see him close to us, in our hearts, like he is here in this book, to the disciples. We are also his disciples. Do you know what the word disciple means? What's the root of this word?
Is it like a word? You worship something? Or you're an apprentice of life, that thing where you're a student of life, always learning.
Disciple means student, learner, followers. So we are all Jesus' disciples. We are all invited to follow him, but not follow him just looking at him and saying, hi, I accepted Jesus, now I'm saved. No. It's really having him as a model for us to follow. Like in the question 625 of the Spirit's book says, who is the guide and the model for the humankind? Who?
Jesus.
Jesus. The shortest answer of the Spirit's book. And the most profound of them. Okay, so with this in mind, let's go to the text. By the way, we are using also this book as a reference, The Energy of the Chakras, Health and Self-Transformation by Alírio de Cerqueira, Filho. And here is a whole chapter that talks about Peter the Apostle, example of transformation of his insecurity to the faith, the convict faith. I am translating while I read. So it's a great book for anyone that is interested. Okay, let's go to the last part of this chapter 26, when Peter is going through the process, when he realized what he has done after the denial. Okay, so let's just remember very quickly, he was with Jesus in the moment in the Last Supper when Jesus was washing the disciples' feet, and he refused at the first moment, at the first beginning. No, you're not going to wash my feet because you're not a slave, a common slave. You are acting like a common slave. We are going to see all this in the summary. But he understood after Jesus explained that he needs to practice the humility, because he was showing himself with so much pride. And then after that, Jesus taught the disciples the last commandment: love yourselves as I loved you. And this, it's very important because, as Jesus also said, you're going to be known as my disciples by the love that you give to each other. My disciples were going to be known by the love that they share among them. So we are all invited to love ourselves and love our neighbors. And then after that, Jesus said, because his relative omniscience, he was seeing what is going to happen right after that moment, the crucifixion, all that situation that we all know here. And Peter trying to show some courage and showing to Jesus and to other disciples that he was brave and he would be with Jesus until the end. He would die for Jesus. He explains that, and he goes that through. Okay. And then Jesus tell him, Peter, you are not ready yet. You will do that later, but not yet. And then he said, very angry with Jesus, like he got in a type of discussion with Jesus, saying, how can you do that? You're saying that I'm not a man enough? And then Jesus said, no, I'm just saying that you're going to see that the human being is more fragile than perverse. And we had a huge conversation here among us about this sentence, right? Mm-hmm. And then Peter, so he hears Jesus, but he didn't understand why Jesus was saying that to him. And after that, we have the moment where when the guards from the high priest come and take Jesus. And the disciples were all afraid. They fled, everybody fled. But Peter and John, they stayed with Jesus, tried to stay with Jesus. John went to see his mom, went to Maria to ask her to come. And Peter tried to mingle with the people in the courtyard to understand why Jesus was being arrested and what he could do in order to help Jesus. Did you remember that? So it's all written there if you wanna just to check. But then he was in the courtyard. He was with a mix of conflicted feeling. He was feeling afraid. He was feeling anxious, he was feeling stressed, and he could only hear people saying that Jesus was a betrayer, Jesus was a thief, and all his disciples was the same, and he was afraid for himself, and he was feeling afraid also for his family. But he wanted so much to help Jesus. But the main feeling that he had at that very moment was fear, because he was very insecure, and Jesus knew that. And then Jesus said to him that the roosters would crow after his third denial. And this is what he did. He didn't deny Jesus because he was a bad man. He just denied Jesus because he was afraid. And after he did that, he realized, he felt this huge pain, and he realized, what have I done? Because the roosters were crowing, and then Jesus' prophecy was just fulfilled. So let's see how this moment happened for Peter. Then he said, then in the book says, Peter recalled the master's words and felt disturbed by infinite anguish. He staggered to his feet and instinctively turning toward the cell in which the master was a prisoner. He saw Jesus' serene countenance contemplating him through the bars. Can you imagine what his feeling was? Like which type of feeling he had at the right moment, seeing Jesus and looking at Jesus and Jesus looking at him after what he had done, the pain that he experienced,
and shame.
and shamed. And this is what we're going to see here. In the grip of indescribable remorse, the disciple left ashamed of himself. Taking a few steps, he reached the altar walls, where he stopped to weep bitterly. He who had always been an austere, resolute man, who had invariably condemned those who strayed from the truth and the good, who had never been able to forgive the most unfortunate women. There he was, smitten like a child in the face of his own wrongdoing. Smitten, for those that don't know what means, is in Portuguese is golpeado. So here we can see the huge remorse that he was feeling and the ashamed. Why do you think that he felt remorse? What is the cause of a remorse? What is the... Why do we feel remorse?
When we do something wrong.
Did something wrong. But, okay, we did something wrong. So why we don't just, okay, I did something wrong, it's fine, what can I do to fix?
Is doing something wrong, knowing that is wrong.
Yeah. And
We have a
what is the
conscience.
act? Huh?
We have a conscience, right? And
Yes.
and we are, as you said in the beginning, we are pretty hard on ourselves.
Yes.
Guilt.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilt.
He was feeling guilty. And like Misty said, lots of words were coming to his mind, lots of voices and condemning him, judging him. He was telling himself all this. Well, he had always been a austere, resolute man. Invariably condemned those who strayed from the truth. Never being able to forgive the most unfortunate women. Like he was saying that to himself. Now, there you were. You have done so much, like you were so the perfect person, perfect disciple. And now what you just did. And what caused the guilty feeling?
Suffering. Suffering.
Suffering, yes, but actually suffering
What
is
caused?
consequence.
Oh, what caused
Yes,
disbelief?
disbelief,
Regret.
yes, insecurity, regret.
Could it be that he felt he could have done better? That's you feel guilty because I mean, it's my understanding. It's because you know you could have done better, but you did not do it.
Hmm.
You let that side of you take over you, and then therefore you feel guilty.
So could you say then that we think that we should do everything perfectly?
That there is no definition of perfect.
Yes. Are we perfect people? We are perfect spirits. We are able to do everything.
Then we
Right.
won't be here.
Yes, exactly. What's the reason that we are here?
Because we are not perfect. We are
We're still learning.
You're still learning. And Jesus said that to Peter and to all the disciples. I know that you'll all be scattered. And that's fine because you are still learning. But Peter thought that he would never do that. He said that to Jesus, no, I will follow you until the end and I would die for you. Because he, in his insecure feeling, he thought that he would be better, he was able to do better.
Yeah, sometimes we are so blinded by that kind of thinking, isn't it? Oh my God, and then we should remember that we are after all.
Yeah, when we think that we are able to do everything perfectly and then we can't do it,
You feel guilt because you are not accept that you can do something wrong, and you are not forgive yourself, and you are not gentle with yourself.
exactly. That's the virtue. Those are the virtues that Jesus invite us in his invitation.
Interesting. Could be a little bit of ego too. How I won't be making that mistake.
Yes. Then he realized that, yeah, I am failure. Like I am weak, and I can do wrong things. You would say something?
The thought that just came up for me is even regarding Peter's response, this idea of remorse, there is something, how should I put it, something healing or even inspirational that comes from it, because when we feel guilt, when we feel shame, we can respond in many different ways to that. We can respond by rationalizing away what we did or justifying it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can respond in anger, we can respond in vengefulness sometimes, frustration, heck, even despair, and allow it to just bury us. yet there's something, maybe the better word is there's something enlightening or something lighter that comes with this idea of remorse, because alongside remorse, alongside the recognition of doing wrong, alongside the recognition of what guilt we might feel, remorse implies a recognition of an opportunity to do better, and even an intention to do then better. And that can be very therapeutic, can be very healing, because it gives us a guide, a light, to kind of direct us to something that better aligns ourselves with who we want to be. And so I think all of this description that was provided is so true as to what can happen. Yet even in his anguish, as is written right there, in his anguish, in the depths of his discomfort, he was blessed with that lightful guidance of remorse from God, from Jesus, in terms of Jesus' love towards him, to show him the way that he could move forward and let go of all of these ties, all of these straps that he had built around himself of refusing to forgive, refusing to be compassionate and understand, and move forward in a way that not only allows him to be the person that he actually always believed himself to be and thought that he was, but also alongside that, see that same interest and that same understanding in everybody around him. And so I find that remorse in and of itself is actually a beautiful sentiment in a lot of ways, even has a great deal of virtue intertwined in itself, even in an environment where it comes up in the most uncomfortable of circumstances, because it serves as an impulse to do better in our lives.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Attila. And this comes to what Emmanuel, he explained to us what is a remorse. When he was asked in the Consoler, question 182, is a remorse a punishment? And then Emmanuel responds, remorse is the force that prepares repentance, just as repentance is the energy that precedes the effort of regeneration. A deep spiritual shock, remorse serves as a pause for enlightenment, through which a person receives indirect assistance from their friends in the invisible, helping them to correct their mistakes and renew their moral values on the journey toward God. Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Remorse, it is very important feeling, negative feeling, doesn't change the fact that it's negative, but helps us to stop our wrongdoings. It's like, acts like a shock, like Emmanuel says here, a deep spiritual shock.
Stop and reflect. Right?
Yes.
And think about it.
If we reflect, if we don't go to rebel, if we don't get angry, if we don't get excused, of course I did that. Did you see what's happening today? Did you see what he did? Did you see what the government is doing? How can I live this way? Oh my gosh, yes, right? So we can, if we don't take self-responsibility, we will be able to find so many excuses. But what we feel, it's our responsibility, it's not the other's one. Does that make sense?
And I think, Sonia, if you take the book Hell and Heaven, Kardec explains the only way for reparation starts in repentance, then expiation, and then reparation. So it needs to start there, right? And that's the only, that's why we're here. Somehow we agreed, and we kind of went through that remorse or that feeling to start our repentance, and now we are in our trials and our expiations to get to reparation.
What is repentance?
Arrependimento.
Oh, okay.
Regret. Yes, exactly. So, guilty feeling is composed by judgment, condemnment, and punishment. When we go to the guilt feeling, it's a very
Dangerous.
yes, heavy.
I think it's worse
Dangerous.
than remorse.
It's worse.
it
But
gives
remorse
gives
takes
you
us
like
to the
a
guilty
stepping stone to correction.
Yeah.
This is
I think it keeps you like paralyzed
yeah,
sometimes.
paralyzed.
Yes.
Yeah.
because we keep in that vicious circle. I should not have done that.
Yeah.
Why I did that? Why I've done that? I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve that because I have done that. How could I do that? We don't stop. We kind of go in circles. And Jesus also gave us a teaching about what we have what we should do when we get to that point. Make friends with your opponent quickly while you are with him in the street, in case your opponent hands you over to the judge and the judge to the officer and you find yourself being thrown into the jail.
Oh my God. That's hard.
And this, most of us understand this teachings from Jesus towards other people. Like we need to act when people do that to us, when somebody that like, we should forgive them because we should make friends with our opponents very quickly, but this is applies to ourselves as well. To the guilty feeling.
I think that brings us to the moment, to the present. Like we know we have a lot of amends to make, like all of us do, and we leave it to the future, right? I will go there later. I'm not ready now.
That's the reincarnation.
And then I was thinking about Paul. I was thinking about, like, I think when Paul was going to Rome, and he always wanted to make it to Rome, he never got there, right?
Yes.
Because when he was going, he just, like, I don't know the details, but, like, he needed to go back to Jerusalem.
Yes.
And then this is what comes to his mind, like, Paul, you need to make peace or make friends with your opponent while you still find them. And then like it's quite enlightening when you see like, okay, sometimes I do need to take a detour and I need to stop and fix that.
Yes. For sure, this applies to others, as you were saying, and also to ourselves. Because if you don't make peace with ourselves, we are not able to do the same with others.
It's just like sometimes you do need to press pause and say what is
that's
important right now.
The remorse is that pause to reflect, to think about.
You regret, you reflect, and then you go to the third level, like you repair whatever you need to repair.
Exactly. What I have done wrong. Why did I act the way that I acted? Talk to ourselves as we are our best friends. What I have done, okay, Sonia, okay, we did that. All right, sounds good. Okay. Why did you do that? What you were feeling in that moment? Talk to yourself. Embrace. We are apprentices. We are learnings. We are here to learn. We are not here to do everything perfect. God didn't ask that to us. And Jesus didn't ask that too. Chico Xavier has a beautiful quote that he says, Jesus never asked us to do big things. Didn't never ask us to climb the Everest mountain, peak. He only asked us to love ourselves. But love others, but love ourselves. To love first. I need to love myself first. I need to embrace myself first in order to do the same to others.
As my daughter sings every day at home, love.
Love another every kind. This is the song that we sing for the kids. All right. So then, after he was in this moment of remorse, he was beginning to grasp the reason. He started to reflect for certain painful experiences by his siblings in humanity. In his mind, as it were, a source of new considerations for the unfortunate in this life was blossoming. He yearned to know, ele tinha vontade de se ajoelhar before the Messiah and beg him for forgiveness for his dreadful fall. Through the veil of his tears obscured eyes, Simon Peter experienced a magnificent, consoling vision. The Master came to him in spirit, and the solitude of the night, his lips wearing that same usual serene smile. Peter knelt and murmured, "Lord, forgive me." But in that confusion of his anguished thoughts, he saw nothing else. It was then that the old fisherman reflected more austerely, recalling Jesus' kindly warnings when he said, "Peter, human beings are more fragile than they are perverse." So Peter learned from his mistake. He realized that his selfish feelings, his thought that he would never fail, that led him to that situation.
And I think also connecting to Renata's last
Exactly.
last talk is when we think that sometimes we do think we are in a position of privilege, right? So we can learn from Peter as well when he thinks he's different from the others.
Exactly.
And he's just, "No, Master, you don't wash my feet. No,
Yes.
Master, you don't do that. Like, how come you all allow him to do that? He's the Master."
Yes.
And then he realized that he's frail, he makes mistakes, and he also has so much to learn. And I think that is the thread that connects him to mankind and to the other disciples as well.
Exactly. To all of us. We are not superior to anyone, but we are not inferior to anyone either. We are all learners. We're all here together to learn. And use the law of compassion. Comply with the law of compassion. How? It's important to reflect that even carrying a past in which we have made mistakes, we are all subject to the law of compassion or law of mercy that invite us to rehabilitate ourselves before our own conscience. Only by the fact that we are all here, reincarnated, we should be very happy and grateful, because the law of compassion allowed us to reincarnate, to repair all the wrongdoings that we have done. Learn. Another chance, like in the Spirit's book says, when Kardec asks about reincarnation, why there is a reason for a reincarnation, and the superior spirits would say that a father never closes a door to a child. For worse that we have done, we also have another chance to do right. And then, however, we can only access the law, this law, the law of compassion, if we see ourselves with compassion. Is that a fact? I can only be a compassionate person if I act with compassion towards myself. A virtue that encourages us to view our mistakes as opportunities to learn and make amends. This is what the law of compassion invites us to do. Recognize the mistakes we have made, learn from them, and repair them rather than punish ourselves for having made them. For self-punishment brings no benefit. Can you understand how guilty feeling is detrimental, how it's dangerous for ourselves? And how important it is for us to forgive ourselves, to learn from our mistakes. It's important for us to have this understanding. And it's important for us to understand how the divine laws work in our lives. We are not going to have time to do this today, but I promise you, this is something that I have in my heart. I want to bring you guys all the laws that are involved in our learning process. Just giving you a hint, what we're going to see in my next topic, next talk. We are going to have an understanding of those. Oops. All those laws. You're going to understand how they are connected with each other and how they work in our lives.
Sonia, is there any book that talks about each one of the laws?
Yes. What's the name? A presença amorosa das dívidas. Yeah. Can you say that in English, please?
The meaning of the divine laws in our lives.
Yeah.
There's a whole series about that.
Yes.
But I'm reading that one, but I didn't find yet anything like explaining like each one of the laws. He does apply to some case, for example.
Yeah.
But I mean something like more, how can I say,
like this?
Yes. Something like this.
This I don't never seen in any book specifically.
Okay.
But I have seen this in many other books, all separately.
Yes.
So then we can put together.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Yes, this is what I'm gonna bring to you the next talk, and also what I was about to say. I forgot. Let me see. If I remember, I say. But most important, just for us to wrap up this talk, is what happened to Peter after that moment. So after that moment, Jesus was crucified, and then Jesus returned after the resurrection. But we all know that was just not his body, his physical body was living again. It was just his spirit. His spirit was showing to all the disciples. And then we had the Pentecosts. Do you know the Pentecost event? When all the disciples, they were speaking in different languages. They were in this mediunistic moment. And then after that, Jesus stayed with them a long time. And then Jesus, in John, we see that in John chapter 21, verse 15 to 22. And it refers to the harmonization text that we read here. When Jesus looked at Simon Peter, and asked him, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And then Peter says, yes, Master, I love you. Then they keep talking, and then Jesus looked at Simon Peter again and said, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And then Peter looked at Jesus and said, yes, Master, I said already, I love you. Okay. Then after another time, Jesus looked at him and asked again, Simon, do you love me? And then Peter started crying and says, look, Master, I already told you I love you. And then Jesus says, feed my lambs. Like he gave Peter chance to 3 times repeat that he loved Jesus. To help him to forgive himself. To love him. To help him to really feel that he had the ability to move on, that he was ready to move on. And from that moment on, Peter became that disciple that Jesus said that he would be, the stone that all his church would be built upon. And once, this we were going to find in the book of Acts, Peter and John, they were going to the synagogue. And on their way to there, they met a paralyzed man, a beggar, and the beggar asked him some money. And Peter looked at him and said, "Silver and gold I don't have, but what I have I give to you. Stand up and walk." And then he stood up and he walked. And from that moment on, he started helping people so much that even his shadow, when he was walking through, was able to cure. So much love that he was able to give. The transformation that he had from that moment on was huge. So Jesus is not asking us to have that transformation from all of the sudden, but he's asking us to make efforts to see ourselves, to really look at ourselves with truth and love, to be compassionate with our mistakes and learn from them. Learn from all the mistakes that we have committed or the ones that we will commit, because this is just normal for our level of evolvement. And we will see the transformation that we are able to do in ourselves. All right, final time. On to
Yeah.
Any questions or comments before we finish? And here is the books that we have read that inspired us to bring this talk. Okay, so Liz would like to put the AGM again, or it's not necessary? No? No. Everybody is here already. Has already seen it. All right. Sounds good.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Wow.
I did I could be too.
Okay.
Your work.
All right. So let's do our final prayer then. Our Master Jesus, we thank you for the opportunity that we had today to learn from you, to be able to understand what it means to be your true disciple. Thank you for the opportunity to provide us so many teachings that help us to navigate through our challenges in life, to our daily issues, problems, emotions. Help us, Master, to embrace ourselves, to be compassionate about our own mistakes, our own weakness. Help us to see ourselves with your eyes of love, so much love and compassion. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Spirit Superior that you are right now. Thank you for your example of how to transform the limitations that you had at that moment in your life and the transformation that you worked on yourself. Thank you, Peter, for your example of self-transformation. Thank you all, spiritual friends, for your help, for the intuitions that you provided to all of us. Help us to embrace in our hearts all the teachings today. will support ourselves when we are facing our mistakes, and be able to embrace them as opportunities for learning. Thank you, my Lord. Thank you, our guardian angels. Thank all of you that are here with us today. May Jesus be in your hearts now and ever. So be it.
These experiences exhilarate me every time. Like they just fill me with such a loving energy. Like it's.
Yeah.
Oh,
I told Victor once. I said, "Geez, I don't know if this is for them or for me. I don't know who's getting more out of this at the end of the day."
We never know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for letting me join you today.